Hey, everybody, I'm Captain Tommy Scribble, and you're on the Lifeboat. Rachel, good for you, man. 2 jobs, getting a bachelor's degree, um, getting 3 bachelor's degrees. Good Lord in heaven. That is impressive. That's impressive if you're not working. Um, but working 2 jobs, that sounds absolutely incredible. Uh, you know what, people? I kind of fought this one kicking and screaming because it's just so many people have talked about it. But this the question that everybody has been wanting me to comment on is Nick and how I think Nick fared in this. Everybody knows that Nick got screwed in this. You know, everything about this stinks. Right? There's nothing about this case that there's nothing about this. Yeah, I know, Rachel. I get that. Right? Keeping your mind distracted is a beautiful thing. You want to stay sober? It's a really beautiful thing. Honestly, it is. Sorry, people. Oh, well, will you look at that? Sorry. Al Jeans, good to see you. Rachel, glad you're here. Jen Marie, Heather in the library. Atypical Paul, glad that you're here. Danielle McCoy, that would be the real McCoy. Gaia, good to see you. Kristen, Melinda. Hello. All right, let's fire this thing up. So here's my problem with all of this, right? As Gypsy Rose reenters society, the level to which this poor person is going to be manipulated starts to shine really, really quickly. Leaving prison is almost impossible. Under the best of circumstances, it's a very, very difficult transition to go from that environment to freedom. Having almost no choices to having unlimited choices. No matter what your support group is, even if you're successful in the reentry process, it is tough. It requires a heck of a lot of effort. It requires a lot of effort. It requires a lot of time and a lot of dedication. And it's ugly, in my opinion, what's happening to her. The fame, to leave. Thank you so much, Carousel Delirium. I appreciate you. I really do. And I'm glad you're here. You've been missed. To go from being hated inside prison, it had to be a very difficult thing for her, right? Being with everyone knowing her, it had to be difficult doing time. Prison's a scary place. It is, under the best of circumstances. It's a scary place. And being very well known, it had to be hard on her. As far as the Nick things go, as far as the Nick thing goes, it's heartbreaking that he's going to spend the rest of his life in prison. The idea is that Lady Justice is holding scales, right? And she's blindfolded because in theory, we don't want her seeing if the defendant is white or black, right? We don't want Lady Justice seeing anything that could taint the decision of the court. That's the idea, right? That's why she's blindfolded. We don't want her dissuaded by anything. There are times Lady Justice needs to take off that damn blindfold and take a good look at the situation. Sending this kid to prison for the rest of his life serves justice in what way? I mean, I'm very sorry about what happened to Dee Dee, but let's be really honest. The mother was a reprehensible human being. There are a lot of people talking about Munchausen's by proxy. This is unusual, right? The Munchausen's by proxy is where a parent gets their a need met, right? They get a need met through the attention that they get because of a child that is ill. Very often, they will do things to ensure that the child remains ill so that they can continue to get that attention. In this case, obviously that was going on, but it also almost seems to me like this was a hustle as much as it was, the mental illness part of this. The mother profited huge from keeping her daughter looking really, really sick. The house that they lived in, right? You know, the trips that they went on, all of the things that they did. Uh, it's about time. Um, yeah, it should be talked about. I tend to agree with you. Yeah, she was a con woman. She was an absolute dirtbag. But I'm not sure I buy into the whole, that this was just somebody that had that mental illness. I think this was a sick human being that saw a way to profit and didn't care about that kid. And that's disgusting. And the fact that she's no longer on planet Earth, I don't think the Earth is at, lost a whole lot when Dee Dee checked out, right? However, we do have laws, but occasionally Lady Justice needs to take a look at who they're punishing, because I promise you, this cat is working with very seriously diminished capacities in a lot of ways. When interviewed after this, he said, "Oh yeah, I'd do it again. Yeah, I'd do it again." That woman has this coming. I did time with a guy. I've told the story on here before, but I did time with a guy that, thank the good Lord, this dude ended up in a pod, right? Which is, in prison, you're not all in one building, right? Obviously, if there's 1,000 people there, they're breaking you up into about 125 people per pod, and they break these pods up. Well, we had a guy in the pod whose name was Bobby, because he looked like a cartoon character, right? He looked a lot like Bobby Hill. So everybody called him Bobby. And within a couple of minutes of meeting him, you knew he was a little bit different than other people, right? But he would walk up to every single person that he would meet. He would walk up and go, "Hey, how you doing? What's your name?" Right? "Hey, how are you? Can you tell me your name?" To every single person. Like, he had to know what your name was. It would drive him crazy. And if people didn't want to tell him, it was really tough. Thank you so much, Carousel Delirium. You appreciate it. I really mean that. Thank you so much. One day I'm walking the yard, and he's out there just walking alone, doing his thing. And he would walk the yard in circles, right out on the, when I say walk the yard, I mean the recreation center in the middle of the prisons, big, huge yard. And it's got a walking path. It's about a half a mile long, between a quarter of a mile and a half a mile, depending on the yard. This one was pretty close to a half a mile. It's a big, big walking path. And he was walking on it. And I walked up next to him, and I said, "Hey, Bobby, what's going on?" He goes, "Oh, not much." And as we're walking, a guy coming the other way, he's like, "Hey, Terry." Every single person that was walking by, he knew the name of. And I just said to him, "Man, you know a lot of people's names." He goes, "I know everybody's name in the prison." Right? And I said, "You know everybody's name in the prison?" He said, "Everybody's." I said, "That guy over there on the bench, who's that dude?" Every single name, without a problem. He was incredibly gifted when it came to memorization, and it did not take him much effort. The guy was a card player from hell. He was forever tuning people up on the card table. But the funny thing about him was he was incapable of lying. I'm not kidding. People would humiliate him by asking him questions that you would never want for someone to ask you in a crowd of people. And he would tell them. And I would say to him, "Bobby, man, you do not have to answer those people, man. Walk away." And he'd go, "I don't care, man. Well, I did it," or whatever. He was bisexual in his walking life in the street. So when someone once, asked the dude if he had ever performed an act that most guys inside the joint would never admit to, he said, "Oh yeah, absolutely." And when I talked to him, he just said, "I don't lie. I've never lied." Very, very unusual cat. But I looked at him and I thought, what is he doing in prison? Right? What is this guy doing in prison? He had made a threat to the White House, 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue. He called up there and said some stupid things, right, about wanting to remove not one elected official but several. The guy that was keeping the guy that was sitting in that office at that time, and the previous holder of the office. He's going to take them both out. Wasn't great at articulating why. It was just one of those days, I think, that the kid wanted to phone up the old white building and raise some hell. Hello, Lisa. This was a bad idea, but it landed the dude in prison. And you would look at him, and I promise you, people, if he landed in a different pod, he would have been abused in ways that, I mean, honestly, it was a miracle that he ended up where he did, because it was a group of people that adopted this guy really early on. We had a high-ranking official in the prison. I meant not a staff member, an inmate. There was a high-ranking inmate that was in our unit. And he made it very clear very early on that, you know what? If anybody does something to this dude, there's going to be a problem. Right? Okay, I wish they had tried that. I wish they had tried that. But I think what really happened here was that somebody with very questionable EQ, someone with very, very limited emotional quotient, not an IQ thing, but an EQ thing, their ability to interact, right? The boy that she got a hold of, I think that she manipulated the crap out of him. And he was the perfect foil. This was a very easy person to manipulate. It was a dream. A very I see things in black and white kind of human being, right? There was no gray area. This person deserves to die for the things that they did, and he was going to do that. It would have been a whole lot better. Well, look, I'm not necessarily saying that this guy should be on the street. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is that to put him in a prison is cruel and unusual punishment from the word go, right? From the word go. This is cruel and unusual punishment. Put him somewhere where he's not going to be around hardened criminals, because I think he would offend again, if you want to know the truth. I think he would. I wonder if the judge was harsh because she feels Nick would offend again. He was so easily talked into it, but he has a very low IQ and obviously intellectually disabled. Should be in an adult facility. I agree with you, right? I don't think this guy should be walking the streets. That's not what I'm saying. But take the guy that shot Ronald Reagan, Hinckley. Hinckley's out, right? John Hinckley walks the street. Now we pay a crap load of money for him to do it, right? The Secret Service follow him everywhere he goes, right? He really is guarded, but that man's free. When things like that happen, somebody that tried to remove the president of the United States of America, and in the process, look what he did to Jim Baker, right? That was a horrific thing. That assassination attempt led to so many people being really, really hurt, But if he can walk the street, I would like to see maybe, 30 years from now, 40 years from now, maybe this guy's never a candidate to ever walk the street again. But to put him in a prison, honest to God, it frightens me. I've watched people who don't have the snap to be in prison, and it goes one of two ways. Like they get around some people that have a soul. There are plenty of good human beings in prison. That may be hard to believe, but there are some really, really good people in prison, and there are good people in prison that will die on that hill. You understand what I'm saying? There are people in there that will not let somebody like that be victimized, and they'll fight to the death for that. That's real. But if they don't happen to end up with one of those people nearby, then the life that this poor kid is going to live is going to be horrific, and that should never happen. The guy that shot Lennon is still in jail. Yes, he is still in jail. J9. His name was Chapman too, I believe, right? Wasn't his name Chapman? I believe his name was Chapman too. But like a Mark David, yeah, they may both be named Chapman. And Spanx Calhoun is setting up a stage somewhere, so I can't even ask somebody to Google it. I think he would reoffend, don't you all? Honestly, this was a guy that he was very easily influenced. And when they interview him after the fact, right? hindsight being 2020, criminals tend to either not be willing to talk to news people at all, or if they do, very often they're going to tell you just how awful they feel about the things that they've done, because it's in your best interest to start showing remorse, whether you feel a stitch of it or not. It's in your best interest. Hinckley and Chapman. So I got it right. I don't know why I doubled back on John Hinckley. Yeah, Chapman was the other one. Mark David Chapman. That's an odd story. We could throw on tinfoil hats and I could talk a lot about that, but we'll do that on a tinfoil Tuesday. I promise. I promise I will do that on a tinfoil Tuesday, because don't let me get down that rabbit hole right now. Right now we're on the this poor girl walking out of this prison. I have this much perspective. I have that much perspective. I walked out of prison with a brother who is YouTube famous. This girl is worldwide, all over planet Earth famous. But it was bizarre to leave prison and go into a world where people instantly thought you were okay. That was really weird. I would imagine that with the upbringing that she had, right? It's really got to be bad. There are some, listen, we have somebody on the boat. I better throw this out right now, or this person's going to show up on my house and remove me from planet Earth. We have somebody on the boat that is fighting really hard to make changes in the California prison system, and shares those all that with me, mails stuff to me routinely, and I read it. And I think what they're doing on the level 1 and 2 yards, which are the lower custody yards, what they're doing for those inmates is incredible. The programs they're putting into place, they're doing amazing things. But in one of the documents, they make a reference to, we don't do this at the 3 and 4 level. Those people can't be trusted. And they're right. People at level 3 and 4 yards can't be trusted. But it's a chicken or an egg thing. I promise you, it's a chicken or an egg thing. When you start to feel like somebody trusts you, it's a buzz. If you've never felt it before, or if you've lost it for so long that you haven't had somebody believe in you, it's a buzz. Right? That's real. Rick, there's no sneaking into the lifeboat. Jennifer, great comment, because this is spot on. This is spot on. Let's say she had a perfect upbringing. Everything was great. Nobody did anything to make this girl's life tough. Keep in mind, that is not her life. She was tortured, right? Systematically tortured so that her mom could fulfill her sick needs. Ugh. She didn't. But if you had a perfect upbringing, leaving prison and going into bright lights and everybody wanting to interview you and everything you say being relevant, and you're an influencer from Jump Street. Holy hell, man. I promise you. And you know what? There are going to be some mean people who say a lot of mean things. And I just hope that this isn't the worst thing that ever happened. I think it would have been just great if she had gotten out and kind of maybe not had to have all of that pressure. There's anybody that has a following of any size, if you say, you know what, there are parts to this that are actually a bummer, you sound like a jackwagon, because there are people out there swinging hammers and working hard, right? But there are parts of this that are really rugged, and they're really rugged on people who have all of their equipment and have a team of people that they're going to talk to about it, right? To deal with the level of vitriol and hate, and people who just tear you apart. And I promise that they're not going to be light on her. They're not. There are going to be a lot of people that think that Nick got railroaded and that she, it's a popular sentiment. It's gaining momentum. A lot of people are talking about how he really got railroaded. And if there was somebody that probably should have done life, it should have been her. Now, that happens more often than not, right? In almost every one of those cases, the person that hires, if you hire a hitman, right, you're going to get the sentence the hitman gets or worse. That's usually how it works. Now, I guess if it's for love, right? I guess if it's for love, it's kind of a different thing. But one way or the other, is she not hiring a hitman? She's not bringing somebody she met in online to kill somebody. It really is kind of like setting up the hit. Right? She provided the weapon. She brought him in. I don't want this girl to be in prison for the rest of her life, but I think it's an odd choice, right? The brains of the operation, I do not think were Nick. I think we can all agree Nick was not the brains of the operation. So I don't know. He's almost a mechanism, right? He's really intellectually challenged, and in the hands of the right person, he could be the weapon, right? What difference does it make if you're holding it or you're cranking that person up and letting them go? Isn't that what happened with Manson, right? Didn't we put Manson away for his entire life without him having killed anybody, right? Certainly not being convicted of killing anybody. There's a lot of argument to the fact that Charles may have offed as many as 6 or 7 people. In the books, I've read a bunch of stuff on him, but he certainly didn't get convicted of any, right? His followers got convicted of murder, and he got convicted of being that mastermind. That mastermind thing usually carries a lot of weight. I think that the sympathy, I think that there was a huge amount of sympathy for Gypsy Rose, and there should be. There absolutely should be. Right? I don't want anything but fantastic things to happen to this girl for the rest of her life. I question whether or not the environment that she's going to find herself in right now is going to be the superhighway to that happiness. But I hope that she's got a team of people around her that are going to get her to the right kind of people. She needs to have some counselors and some therapists and some psychiatrists and psychologists, and get a team, right? Get a team together. I hope that that's the case. It really does seem like, boy, oh boy, man. Imagine walking out to that kind of spotlight. I don't know that I would have crashed and burned. I promise you. I just don't think I could have done that. I don't know. I mean, maybe, who knows? I guess you don't know, but damn, it's a lot, right? Yeah, Brianna, this is, she said some things that are a bit disturbing, right? There's been a couple of things already that she said, and you know what? It's not disturbing for anyone to say, but since it's the entire world listening, people are going to go, oh, so inappropriate. Well, you know what? Having everything you say be told to the world is inappropriate, especially within your first 14 days to a month of leaving. Heather, I agree, and I think, you know what, I agree, and let me rephrase it just so that no one thinks I think she could be a fantastic voice and an advocate. I think that is an amazing advocate is Elizabeth Smart, right? But has spent a lot of time, really working on herself. You really need to kind of work. Yeah, I think Heather, that's a great comment. That's what I would like to see. I would like to see her not just be in, baptism by fire the second you walk out of the joint. Oh, Lord. And it's like there was a circus going on, right? And she went into prison and got convicted, and now she's coming back out, and that circus is still going on. I think that's dangerous. That's dangerous. As addicts, we all know how dangerous that is, right? Honestly, coming back to the same environment, that's going to be the default setting of the brain. That's dangerous. Oh, God, that's dangerous. It really is. And you come up with people that will do anything to remain relevant, which is frightening, right? Isn't it? I think, you can sell your story and kind of, yeah, she has to make a living, to be sure. She does. I hope good things happen to her. I really hope good things happen to her. And I hope that in the future they reopen the Nick case. I hope they take another look at it. I hope that an energetic crew of college kids take a run at it, because it seems to me that that's usually what happens. when something happens that just really stinks of injustice, when something happens that just looks like, how in hell are they going to let this happen? It would be great if our court systems just fixed it, but it's never the case, is it? It's rock stars that get angry about something. It's celebrities that get angry about something. It's a group of college students that go through cases and go, what? So many people have gotten released from unjust sentences because perfect strangers decided that this sucks. Right? We're not going to let this happen. Again, it would be a much better place if we didn't have to do it. Right? This is really the good question, isn't it? Right? Why didn't he get sent to a mental health facility versus prison? Well, I guess they, the threshold for whether or not somebody is fit to stand trial should not be the threshold of whether or not somebody is cool to go into court. I mean, into prison rather. There are people that because of, I just think, I'm going to struggle with this when this happens because I was there too long. I saw things that just scared the crap out of me. No, I agree with you. This cat deserves to go to prison. I mean, I'm sorry. This cat deserves to not be free. I just don't like what they're doing. I don't think for a hot second that this is a one-sided deal, but I don't think that justice in this is this poor kid spend an eternity, right, every day of the rest of his life in a men's prison versus an 8-year sentence. That's my beef. Even let's call it 60-40, right? 40 for her. Let's call it 70-30, right? We certainly didn't divide the time up that way. Okay. 8 years versus life. That really is a much different proposal. Well, again, Heather in the library, the process of putting somebody through classification, like I don't know if you were here earlier when I was talking about the guy that I was in with, Bobby. How in hell did that kid get through classification? Right? How did that dude get through classification? And we would look around. Everybody that met him in my unit went, "What's he doing in prison? How is he in prison?" They don't care. That's what it comes down to. They don't care. I'm sorry, they don't. They're cranking through, right? It is an assembly line. It's an assembly line. It is. It's just one of those. The way it works is there are special circumstances to the crime, right? So after a certain number of special circumstances, as an example, if you commit if you kill someone in the commission of another felony, so I'm robbing a bank, and in the process of robbing the bank, I shoot somebody and that person dies, or I run somebody over in my car and that person dies, right? I'm never getting out. That's the end of it. Because that second extenuating circumstance, the fact that I did it in the commission of a felony. Well, for this cat, there was a bunch of different a bunch of the right. I think it was 17 times. The premeditation and the planning and he mailed the weapon. There were so many different things that really he cannot get money. This is a great question, Rob Roy. Great question. He cannot make money. This is called the Son of Sam law. When you are incarcerated, you cannot make money from your crimes. You can get out of prison and write a book because you are now a citizen again. You can get out, you can tell your story, you can write a book, you can do whatever. While you are incarcerated, you cannot sell your story. You cannot do anything where you profit. Are there ways this happens? Yeah, there are ways that people get around this. However, they tend to be really slick people. I'm not sure Nick is, I'm not sure that, and it's hard to approach somebody who is incarcerated for any reason. Do you understand what I'm saying? It's not like you just reach out to somebody, right? Even if you try to, it's a very difficult process. It really is. But yeah, you cannot make $1 off your own crime. You cannot. Um, if they make money, it should go to the victims camp compensation fund. I agree with you 100%. And I think that that there are times that even if people are making money on the street off of something, I think that it's hard to watch people profit off of off of anything like that. But I mean, so you see your favorite movies, right? Some of the best movies ever made were people profiting off of life's a crime, right? The real crime stories, things like Goodfellas, right? I mean, they changed up names but the base story for that, the Lufthansa heist, that happened. Those were all real people, and that really happened. Then that was a guy that went through witness protection, and after he was released, he started to work with an author one-on-one, and they wrote a book. And then that book got converted. The book was called Wise Guys, and then the book got converted into Goodfellas, right? But this kind of thing does happen when you've done your time and you leave. You can profit off of that crime, but you cannot while you were in. You got to do that time. So Nick's not getting out. He's not going to get paid. Yeah, and I think that's probably a good law, right? It's probably a really good law. You'd have agents, and I mean, it would get really, really bizarre, right? Although, you know what? There are people who have recorded albums from inside on phones. There's been some crazy stuff. And now in the state joints, I don't know how this ever happens. I really don't. But in the state facilities, there are guys that have YouTube channels. You guys have probably seen them. There are people who are showing you how to cook, and they're showing you all kinds of stuff from inside their prison cell. That is not a federal facility. In the feds, they got these little devices that they walk up and down the prison with. And if there's a cell phone being used anywhere, like, you can hone in on it. They're real hard to get away with in the feds, unless you're on a 1 and a 2 yard, right? Anytime I'm talking, you should just assume that anything I say means on a 3 or 4 yard. Because on a 1 and 2 yard, if they are letting you go into town, they're not tripping too hard on whether you got a cell phone or not, right? I was in the shoe once with a bunch of guys who were campers, because the camp, the FCI, all of us went to one shoe, right? Because they were closing down part of the prison. So, but these guys came in, and I said, "Hey, what are you in for?" You're yelling through the vent. And he said, "I got caught with booze." And I said, "Yeah, I said, what was it? Because I'm assuming it was either moonshine or wine." And then I'm curious what he's making it of, that kind of thing. And he says, "Bud Light." And I'm like, "You got caught with Bud Light?" And he's like, "Yeah." I go, how does this happen?" He said, "Oh, I'm at the camp. We go into town all the time to pick things up for." So they would grab Budweiser and Bud Light and stash it off the prison grounds. Then at night, go out and get it. Doors aren't locked, nothing. You just got a time when the guards are coming. I said, "Oh my goodness, you guys were not doing time." It's a very different very different experience in the 1 and 2s, especially the 1 yards. The camps, these guys have their girlfriends and wives meet them in the parking lot at night. It is a very different thing. What's your thought on people writing to inmates? How does that process work in America? There are a bunch of different sites, and there are organizations that try to put people together, and what they do is then sell contacts to inmates. So pen pals behind bars, right? An inmate will pay $120 a year, and they get 7 or 8 names of pen pals, almost always outside the United States. I think that the inmate, there's probably, I don't want to say that every one of them is somebody that's trying to take advantage of who's ever writing to them. But I will say that there are people in there for whom that is a way to make a living. And they will be writing to as many people as they possibly can. And they will have pat stories. And the stories literally will be the same with 9 people going on at the same time. And there was an inmate in the feds that they prosecuted for this, right? First time that ever happened, I was still in. And everybody, this was really a big deal. Everyone was talking about it. But there was a guy that they busted while he was in prison for defrauding a lot of people out of cash. And they actually tried twice. And the first time, there was nothing they could do because, I mean, people are giving you money. I mean, you could be a dirtbag, but if they're giving you money. But the second time around, there were some things that he did apparently that crossed the line to make it from just being a scumbag, who lies a lot, to actual some kind of wire fraud. But they prosecuted for it, which is good because people have been doing it forever, and it's sad because if you sell somebody love and you take all their cash, that's a pretty disgusting. Maybe worse than whatever put them in prison. I would be it's very cool to write somebody, and it's good for them. That's a beautiful thing if they start asking about cash. Right? Don't do it. Joy, I'm not surprised by that at all. The fellas, a lot of them are going to bother you for photos and be weird. Yeah. Sadly, there's a lot of weird guys in there, and a lot of these people have absolutely no way to have any relevance or any relationship or anything to the street other than someone who opens that door just enough for them to have some kind of interaction. And that is the same with women, and that is the same with everything, right? And it tends to bring out the best and the worst in people. Right? Sometimes it brings out people that really want to find out everything about somebody, and there's some very serious. You talk to somebody for a year without any physical contact, or 2 years or 3 years without any physical contact. That's a pretty tight bond that can be made, and yeah, if the person's in there and they're asking for nothing other than your time and to write to them, that's a beautiful thing. I would say if they got a story and the story has something to do with that something in there got broken, because that's usually the story. Right? They broke something by accident. Somebody came into my cell and there was a fight. I stepped on a guy's MP3 player, or something happened. It's always that they're about to get hurt if they don't have cash by a certain amount of time. And the ones that are good at it, you'll be convinced they never asked for the money and you forced it on them. I mean, this is all they have to do. But I'm sure that there are great I know a bunch, and there were some great human beings inside. So it's like anything else, right? It is. It's like anything else. I would imagine that the good guy to dirtbag ratio is probably a little bit skewed in prison. There's some bad people in there. There really are. And another piece of advice would be this. Be very careful what the crime is, right? I would be careful what the crime is. I wouldn't be writing to people with really violent crimes. That's just a piece of advice I would give to any friend. Does that mean that a person can't be forgiven for a violent crime? That is not what I mean. But I would not want my friends writing to anybody that was in on a violent crime. I wouldn't. That's just my advice. Layla, it's a little disturbing. This one was a little disturbing. And it was more disturbing, I think, because obviously this guy, this poor kid doesn't have all of the. So there are a lot of reasons for this. Very often, the letters that come in will come in a very predictable fashion. Some would like to save your soul, right? There are people who are writing in that want you to convert to whatever their brand of salvation is, right? That's one of the reasons that people write in, because they want to save your soul. One of the reasons that people write in is because they are junkies of that genre of whatever, right? So if you're a bank robber, there are people who are so into that they will look up cases and then write to bank robbers. There are people who write to serial killers all the time. In fact, they probably get more mail than anyone. And it's because we have some kind of sick fascination with them. Yeah. I mean, we do. They make a lot of movies about them. They make a lot of specials about them. And I mean, did you hate Hannibal Lecter? How many movies does it take where the serial killer's kind of cool before society just starts thinking that, well, it is kind of a cool uh, kind of a cool thing. Oddly enough, when I first got to Phoenix, there was mail waiting for me, and there was a decent amount of it. Right, um, there was a decent amount of mail. But what they said was they wanted a list of the people that were going to write to me because they don't put up with it in the feds. Like they get really bummed out if you just get random mail. Um, is this something like how women like bad boys? Look, you know what? Honestly, I can't comment to that. I mean, I'm sure that there is a group of women that dig that. Absolutely, truth to that. I mean, it is what it is, but it doesn't make a whole lot of sense, and it's not something I think that you know. If somebody likes you for that, then they're going to like you when they're writing to you. Unfortunately, people, you don't get away with being a bad boy, right? It has repercussions, and there are no bad boy retirement homes. Well, there are, right? But they don't let you out once you walk in. Those retirement homes are serious about keeping you inside, right? So I would be careful to who I write to. But it is just a lot of people who a lot of people feel like they can be really adventurous, right? They can be really adventurous writing to this bad boy because he can't hurt you, right? But you strike up a relationship, and these relationships can get very, very serious. You would not believe the number of people on death row who are married, and they're married to people they met while they were on death row. Now, my humble opinion is that these are probably people that had that really had someone absent in their life, and this is something they're comfortable with, right? It's just enough contact to be comfortable with. I think it's sad. I really do. I think it's sad. I think it's sad for all parties involved. If you want to know the truth, I think it's pretty sad. But people ask me about this all the time. I want the people to get letters. I want the people to get letters. I really do. I just be really careful, right? That's all I will say. I tell families the same thing, by the way, right? I tell families the same thing. If you got a family member that's going into prison, right? There is a whole list of things that they are going to give you as standard BS if they get in trouble with drugs, gambling, anything. They're going to have a standard list of crap that they're going to, because there's only so many lies you can come up with, right? For why you need money in a prison. There's just so many, especially if it's a no fault situation. Because more often than not, they don't want to call and say, hey, I ran up a huge dope debt, and these guys are going to get really, really angry if I don't pay it off, right? You're probably not going to hear the truth. But if at any point they're having you try to go to Western Union, right? If a guy says, you know what, I need a radio, it's $26, right? I would send money to a friend of mine to get a radio because I know that $26 ain't getting them high in prison. It's not even starting to. But I wouldn't do that for a perfect stranger either. I just wouldn't. Uh, it's I'm pulling for every single guy in prison that somebody writes to them. I am, but I'm more interested in protecting the people on the streets. If the person gets out and has had a true change of who they are and a true change of life, it should become evident through their actions. It will not take long to see if this person is the reformed bad boy that you thought they were, right? Don't take their word for it. Don't take their word for it. Maybe stick around and wait to see what happens. Um, yeah. I missed it, J9, but I'm sorry. I didn't see what it was for. But I'm sorry. Yeah. This is I think this is usually how it is. I dated bad boys fueled by Hollywood fantasies that he'd be a jerk to everybody but me. Turns out that's not the case. They're usually just jerks by default. They're usually not very good at getting along well in society. Right? There's reasons for that, and normally it's not something they can turn on and off for one individual. Again, maybe watch them get out and see how they do. If they're going to make it, you're going to know about it within the first year or two. And if they're not, you're going to know about it even faster than that. I promise. They tend to get off the rails really. Inmates get off the rails really quickly. They do. Am I in contact with any friends that I've met in prison? Yes. I have a friend on the street that I did time with in the federal system who's out and doing fantastic. And he does some social media stuff, but not this side of it, right? He helps people with channels and things. We're always talking about getting together and doing something. Every single time we talk, I say to him, "Man, you got to come on the boat." He will, I promise. He watches them. He always will say, he picks out certain ones, and I'll get a text. And usually when he has something he can pick on me about, you know what I mean? Like when that whole take off your shirt thing. Oh, he had a friggin' field day with that. I'll tell you what, he was just loving that. Mischief Managed, thank you so much. I love it. Thank you so much. Welcome to the Lifeboat. All new crew members. Thank you so much. You know what? You guys are fantastic. Really, really fantastic. And I mean that. Lucky Lady Purple. Dig that name. Lucky Lady Purple. So now here's my wrap up on this. Here's my wrap up on this. And I'm just gonna sound like a dirtbag. I really am. I'm gonna sound like a dirtbag. But I'm suspect that everything that happens with this case going forward, the people who put themselves in this girl's orbit, I think we need to keep our eyes this big that she doesn't find another Dee Dee. Right? For real. She doesn't find another Dee Dee. With all due respect to this girl, she's a hot mess, right? She's a hot mess. And I was the worst hot mess on the earth, way worse, right? But you need some counseling, you need some therapy. What you probably don't need is to catch a husband inside, right? While you're in there, find that the dude you're going to spend the rest of your life with might not have been a great decision either. And people that are ready to sign up for that kind of drama, they either have the biggest heart on the planet, right? The biggest heart on the planet, or or this is a paycheck and a payday, and that's disturbing. Disturbing. You feel me? Jennifer Lemke, very interesting. Jennifer Lemke says she will become a DD, I think. You know something? It's a really interesting comment. Here's something about this poor girl's life. She has always been on stage in one way or another, right? I mean, when mom's forcing you to use a walker and then a wheelchair and you know you can walk, right? And I'm not saying the girl's in on it. What I'm saying is she's been forced her entire life to be on a stage in one way or another, always. The camera's always on for that girl. That's heart-wrenching. And I think the one opportunity that she could have maybe, faded out of the limelight, it doesn't look like that's going to be the case. And that's unfortunate. And what happens when we are no longer fascinated, right? For real. She's a sweet, a sweet kid. She really is. But there is a novelty to this story that I think is going to wear off. And I'm not sure what that's going to do to her. I don't know what that's going to do to her husband as well, right? Who had to know what he was signing up for. And maybe he signed up for it because he wanted to sign up for it. It's scary all the way around to me. It really is. I think that this girl is just, she's primed to be taken advantage of for the rest of her life. And that sucks. That really sucks. So, but it's a dumpster fire, isn't it? I mean, the entire damn thing, it's a dumpster fire. How she how the two of them met, how this transpired, the stuff that leaks out. Oh, Jennifer, Lord, yes. Oh, Lord, yes. And you know, honestly, this is going to sound awful, but there are things that I want you to say so that I don't. So I like this, right? Because this is important. I think she is still naive. She should have disappeared for a bit, gotten some help, and then maybe come back. I think she's very naive too. And I think that her emotional quotient, her EQ, is massively uh, stunted by what was done to her as a child, right? From malnutrition to everything else that this sick, hard to call her a mom, isn't it? This sick woman did to her child. Uh, there's a lot there, right? And this is what I got to say now, right? Since you brought this up, Jennifer, with all due respect, right? What dude is cool signing up for that? Because I'll be honest, I get a vibe from the girl that feels like 11 or 12 years old, right? And that's not her fault. It's because of, very often when you're really badly abused and your EQ kind of stops developing at a point, you kind of get trapped with the sound of your voice and with a lot of other things that it's difficult, right? It's hard. But I'm curious, the kind of guy that not only is willing to sign up for all of that, what all that entails in terms of her coming out of prison and all of the glitz and the glamour and the cameras and all of that, right? But it seems to me like, yeah, this is probably. I'm concerned about the kind of cat that can fall in love with a girl like her in the situation that she's in while she's still behind bars. I'm wildly concerned about that. That's just my humble opinion, people. As you know, I'm just a guy that was addicted to heroin. Right? That's it. I'm not a doctor. I don't play one. I'm just a guy that was addicted to dope and robbed some banks. That's it. So that's my opinion, people. But you wanted it. You asked me what my opinion was on this, and there you have it. I feel horrific for the kid. I wonder, honestly, as bad as this is, I wonder how much this is really bumming him out. I mean, if he happens to catch a unit, it's just like I said, if he catches a unit with people that understand and have big hearts, I'll bet you that Bobby, the guy I was in with, I bet you he looks back at his time fondly. I'm not kidding. I've told this story before. You can buy a photo ducket, right? And then you go down and you can get a picture taken. And I went down there with the only guy that I am still in contact with. He's on the street, but the three of us went down. And I said to Bobby, I go, hey, man, come here, take a picture with me. Right? He goes, you want me to get in a picture with you? I said, yeah, man, come here, get in a picture with me. So we took a picture. And in all honesty, I wanted a picture because he looks so much like Bobby Hill that I thought, in the future, no one's going to believe this. So when I find the picture, I'll show it to you because he looks so much like Bobby Hill. But he said to me when the picture was when we were done, he goes, other than a booking photo, I don't think I've ever had my picture taken. And I went, what? I'm like, you got to be kidding me. And he's like, no. I said, what with phones? He goes, oh, no, with phones. But I don't think it ever happened with a camera. Now, this is a dude who could remember the name of every single person on a prison yard. What kind of life did he live that no one ever took a picture of him? I said, what about school pictures? Never happened. Never happened. There are people who are inside that should not be inside. We have to get better. You can judge a society by looking at how they take care of the people that they've incarcerated. You really can. You know what, people? I got whatever I had coming to me when I was in there. For real. I did it. I robbed the banks. I went to prison for it. Right. Second time, it was gun stuff. I had those guns. Right. I'm not innocent of anything that I did. I went to prison for stuff I did. Not complaining about it. It's where I should have been. And even when I got tuned up in there, right? Nobody was tuning me up for nothing. I was always, I had done some stuff in there that I shouldn't have done. They shouldn't have treated me the way they did, but I never felt like a victim. So I'm not one of those people who sits here and says, you know what? They shouldn't be treating, I wasn't complaining because of how they treated me, but I think that there are people that out there that are serious dirtbags. Is that Rickardson? Hello, Rickardson. Hey, I'm all for exposing Scientology 24/7. I really am. I'm not a fan. I'm pretty vocal about the fact that I'm not a fan of the cult in any way, shape, or form. Let's see what we got here, people. I think I hit all of these. I did. Good. Wanted to make sure I don't miss these because sometimes people, I am not the brightest bulb, I'm getting older. Hippie chick, good to see you. Good to see you. Hippie chick. Well, isn't this a question? How many people, how about what percentage people who get convicted for crimes are innocent? There are people that have guessed as high as 4 to 8%. God, I hope that's wrong. Right? I hope that's wrong. If it's a half of 1%, we failed. Right? If it's one person, we failed. %, anywhere you shake it, it's horrific. Anything's too high. 6 people are too high. For real. And I'm not a bleeding heart. For a guy that's been to prison, man, I'm not a bleeding heart. Nobody should go to prison kind of thing. You have to have prison, people. I promise you. Prison's a necessity. I did time with people that need to be in there. Do they coerce people into false confessions? Jack, my friend that comes here, was interviewed for just under 40 hours with the FBI concerning my crimes, not his. Now, by the end of that 40, if you're somebody that's, a little challenged, you'll say whatever you need to say to get them to let you go. A lot of people don't realize, like they said to Jack, they threatened him with, they said, listen, you need to make a phone call to set him up this, and this. If you do this, you could be out of here in the next 15 minutes. And he said, if you don't pull out some handcuffs, I'm going to be out of here in the next 5. But if you're not a person that realizes all you got to do is get up and walk out, they'll tell you in the beginning you can leave anytime you want. But when they start doing people forget that really quickly. Earthling says, how to get rid of for-profit prisons. This is something that I've been doing a lot of thinking about because it comes up a lot, right? The feds have very few private prisons, right? But I want to tell you something. If we got rid of every private prison in the U.S. instantly today, prisons are still for profit, right? Even if they're not private, every one of them is still for profit. I promise you, right? I promise you. They're sending bills to the government, right? For how many people are in there and the grift and not to mention the fact that, how about those sweetheart deals for the companies that come in and hire us? I worked as quality control, right? For all of the shirts going out for the Air Force. That was my line. I did the Air Force line of all of their dress and casual blouses, right? For the military. And right? I was quality control. I had to look at everything before it went out, had to put my stamp on it, all that stuff. And I think I was making, when I got to the top of the food chain, I think I was making 62 cents an hour, right? 62 cents an hour. And for the record, that's big pimping, huge money, huge money, right? Usually you're working for about 17 to 20 bucks a month. So I was killing it, right? I was making huge money for real. You know, my checks were 3 digits, right? I always made more than $100 a month, always. And inside, that's a lot of cash. But we would show up. Inmates work for pennies, and we beg to work for pennies. Beg to work for pennies. We stand online and to beg. We stand online to have the right to beg, right? Jennifer, yeah, I guarantee you that she did. I guarantee you that she did. And you know what? I bet you she got it from people who care. Honestly, I've heard people badmouth the crap out of prison counselors. I did not experience that in any way. I really didn't. The one group of people that I met in the prison system who seemed to be there because they actually wanted to help people, the counselors, were incredible. And I don't care what prison I was at. They were always good. I think that there are people who get into school and they just don't buy into it, and they think that deep down, if everybody was treated differently, they wouldn't be in prison. And for that reason, you tend to get some people that are really fantastic people. Have I heard of Prisonyland in California? And if so, what are your thoughts? Now, here's what I'll tell you. I have heard 70 or 80 prisons in my life that have been called Prisonyland. The prison that I was at in Oregon, right? Sheridan is called Paradise or Prisonyland, right? It's a term that convicts use to mean that the place you just came from wasn't hard, right? So a guy will come in and he'll admit it, right? Like he'll come up and say, "Hey, where are you coming in from?" "Dude, I was coming in from Prisonyland. I was on a soft yard and I blew it. I was at a level 2. I got caught making wine or whatever, and now I'm up here, man. I bumped up my custody points. I left Prisonyland. Now I'm in the real joint, right?" So it's a term we hear all the time. Is there one particularly in California? I don't know which one they would be referring to. I don't know which one they would be referring to, but that is a term that gets used a lot, an awful lot. Thank you so much, Lisa Trimble. I really appreciate you. Good to see you. Thank you. Lisa's great. And always just super supportive. J9, I'm glad that you did a lot. This was a case that is just such an excellent example of how the system can go bad, right? It's really, really awful. But that was such a great example of a great case. And I read, I read Damien Eccles' book. I think I read a lot on that. They were always on the book cards, always. Why do you think the U.S. prison system is so different compared to Germany, Norway, Sweden, Iceland? Okay, well, there is a very, very popular sentiment, right? There's a very popular sentiment in this country that, what do we say, right? Lock them up and throw away the key, right? Lock them up and throw away the key. Our response to everything bad that happens in this country is to give the people more time. When the crack laws came, we took anybody that was caught with crack and gave them 5 or 10 times the time that you would get for powdered cocaine, even though the powdered cocaine you could take and turn into crack. It was just we do knee-jerk reactions, but we're never really looking at the problem. We treat the symptoms, but we don't treat the problem, right? I've said this many, many times on the Lifeboat. The way we determine how many prison beds need to be made, because it's funny, we don't seem to run out, right? We never seem like, oh, quick, we need to be in a hurry to build, 4 million beds really, really fast. No, we always seem to know, right? And we know because we check illiteracy rates in the 4th grade. And if we check illiteracy rates in the 4th grade, we know that when those kids come of age, 18 to 26, what percentage of them are going to need a place to live in prison? So the answer is, our prison system is screwed from day one. There's nobody in there trying to rehabilitate anybody. They're trying to punish them. Now, at the 1 and 2 levels, especially in California right now, they're doing an awful lot to try to help. And I appreciate that. I do. The guys that really need it, though, are not 1 and 2s. 1 and 2s are guys that got in there for really minor crimes. They're this much off course. The guys that are going to get out and really need help are the guys that are going to do a much longer amount of time. The guys that are in the level 3 and the level 4 yards, those are the people that you don't want to leave prison the way they walked in. Yeah. Shannon Smith says, Tommy, have you ever heard of someone being beaten to death in solitary confinement? I have. It's not as rare as you would think. Obviously, it's not inmates that do it, right? But it happens. But it's not inmates that do it. And I've been beat by guards. I promise you I have. It happens. Demon of the Blue Skies and Sandy Beaches, thank you so much. Really appreciate you. It's pretty disgusting. It really is. Well, and in theory, that's what we're supposed to be doing here, right? There is a group of things, right? There are things that we can do to in theory, we're supposed to be protecting society from the inmate, right? That's one of the things. That's one of the reasons you're in there. The other reason you're in there is to scare away other people. Whoa, did you see how much time they gave Tommy? I'm not going to rob any banks. Okay. The third is that they're going to rehabilitate you, right? That's big. If you take that one out of the equation, then this system's broken. And all you're doing is recycling them back in. But you know what? That's not such a bad thing, is it? Especially if when they come in, you don't even have to train them. Put them right to work. You know how many times I was in there on Unicorn and the boss would go, oh man, guess what? Rick got busted. He just hit. And I'd go, who the hell is Rick? Oh man, one of the best button-holers we ever had here. He's back. Stoked to put him right back to work, man. Comes right in the factory, throws his stuff off, goes right back to work, man. You know, right back to Unicorn. For some people, it's the best life they ever had. 60 cents an hour. And when you're in there, it is really, really hard. It's hard. If you're people would fight. People would fight for those jobs because for 8 hours, your brain would leave prison. And for 8 hours, you were just a guy working, right? You weren't a convict. They weren't giving you crap. You were a factory worker, right? For that time there, you did not feel like you were incarcerated. And the conversations you had were about how many shirts, we were trying to get out and what's the problem with this line and what's going on with that line, right? It felt freedom. It wasn't, but it sure as crap feels like it. And guys will fight for that feeling. Layla says, did you learn how to be a better criminal? Yeah, I did. I absolutely did. Right. There were guys in there that, that were talking to me about things that they were pulling off. Right. They were talking to me about how to know if if they were following you, the rope program, the repeat offender, they're all of these things that people just sit around and talk about all day. It's disturbing. And I'll be honest, I wasn't trying. Even when I was in there, the first 2 times in my head, I thought I was going to get out and never come back. I mean, I wasn't going to stop doing dope because that wasn't the problem. Right? The problem wasn't the dope. I was the problem. I was just going to fix what I was doing. So if I made enough money, then the dope wasn't an issue. The problem was I didn't make enough money to buy the dope that I needed. You understand? It's just that simple. Yeah, I don't listen. I don't have sympathy for guys. What I really can't stand. Well, thank you, Doc. The guy's name is Matt Cook. Matt Cook. I know Matt Cox, the guy that did all of the. He was doing all of the identity crime stuff and house theft stuff. He does some advertisements on for home identity lock and things like that. But I don't know the Cook. I don't think. It was Matt Cox. Okay. Yeah. I know Matt. Matt and I have met. I was on Matt's show. He has his own channel. If you go over there, I did a pretty long interview with Matt over on his channel. I knew that he was going on Lex Friedman. Well, I'll be darned. How about that? So that came out today, did it? Good for him, man. I'm happy to hear that. I really are. Hello, Veronica. I'm glad that you're here. Truthfully, you did get here kind of at the back end of this. I'm guessing someone else. So I'm running a little late, people. I will be back up and running tonight at my normal bat time, squirrel time. Sorry. Yeah, and I got a bunch of Epstein stuff, but we just can't do it today. I got a bunch of Epstein stuff, and it's not about names. It's not about any of that. It's about a very, very interesting, set of reports that, man, oh man, it's not like any of us believe that guy killed himself, right? Okay, well, I assure you he didn't. And there's just a whole lot of evidence to prove that he didn't, and I'm going to be firing that up probably tomorrow. Alrighty, everybody, check this out. See this here? This is a cat in a basket. Oh, not a happy one either. I didn't mean to mess with your sleep. Very good kitty. All right, everybody, I will see you on the next one. I'm Captain Tommy. Bye-bye.